The white moonlight of my wife Eleanor's heart, Julian, and I were both struck by a venomous snake at the same time. Without a moment's hesitation, she gave the single dose of antivenom to him. "You have a system," she told me, her voice devoid of warmth. "Give the medicine to him." What she didn't know was that Julian was faking his symptoms. My life, however, was genuinely fading. I knelt on the cold hospital floor, my voice cracking as I begged her to give me the antidote. Her response was a blade of ice. "Why must you be so malicious?" She slammed the operating room door shut without a second thought, leaving me outside. My mission unfinished, my body convulsed in agony on the sterile linoleum, the world dissolving into a haze of pain. A month later, she finally remembered me, but she was far too late. My body had long since been reduced to bone. "Dr. Vance, is your husband all right?" a young nurse in her department asked, trying to make a light-hearted joke with the perpetually cool Eleanor. A look of pure disgust twisted Eleanor's features. "A man who would do anything to survive? He'll be fine." Floating in the air beside her, my ghostly hand paused. I watched her, a deep furrow in my brow. The nurse's smile faltered. "But we never saw him leave the hospital." For a fleeting second, Eleanor's movements hitched. It was so fast I almost thought I'd imagined it. A flicker of uncertainty in her cold facade. She recovered instantly. "Humph. A man like that, resorting to such cheap tricks just out of jealousy. I'm sure he staged the whole thing for attention. Don't worry, nothing could ever happen to him." The nurse glanced at Eleanor nervously, about to say more, but Eleanor cut her off sharply. "Never mention him in my presence again." Just then, the door to a nearby patient room opened. Julian looked out, his gaze finding Eleanor. "Eleanor." The icy mask she wore melted away, replaced by a warm breeze as she walked toward him. "Julian, how are you feeling?" "Any better?" she asked, her voice soft as she took his hand, her demeanor shifting to that of a concerned young woman. Julian smiled, gently stroking her hair. "I'm perfectly fine now. After all, our brilliant Dr. Vance is a miracle worker." A blush crept up Eleanor's cheeks. "Oh, you always know just what to say," she murmured. They stood there, lost in their own world, a perfect picture of affection. After a moment, as if just remembering, Julian asked, "Eleanor, is Leo all right?" The mention of my name instantly extinguished the smile on Eleanor's face. A scornful expression took its place. "He prizes his own life above all else. How could he not be all right? He probably faked the whole thing when he heard you were in trouble. Just another one of his pathetic ploys for attention." Her words were like shards of glass. I tilted my head, a phantom ache echoing in my chest. 7 years together, and this was the image she held of me. But it was over now. She was free, and I was dead. I would never bother her again. My last conscious memory was of the excruciating pain, my desperate cries outside her operating room. Anyone could have seen the agony I was in, but she had remained indifferent, giving the last vial of antivenom to Julian, telling herself that my system would save me. She never understood. I had been trying to complete her conquest for 7 years. That was my final chance. With the mission failed, the consequence was erasure. The world would no longer contain a person named Leo. It was for the best, I supposed. No one had ever truly cared for me anyway. I pressed a hand to my chest, trying to soothe the pain that still lingered in my soul. How strange that a ghost could still feel his heart break. Nearby, their conversation continued. "Perhaps you should have Leo come by," Julian suggested, his tone laced with false sincerity. "I want to explain everything to him myself, so he doesn't misunderstand our relationship." "Humph," Eleanor scoffed. "Why should you apologize? Julian, you're the one who was wronged." She guided him back into the room. "He would have succeeded if I hadn't seen through his little scheme. Why should someone like you apologize to someone like him? When you're stronger, I'll drag him here to apologize to you." Her voice droned on, a relentless stream of misplaced conviction. I stood frozen, my mouth agape, but no sound came out. A bitter, acidic feeling flooded my entire being. I was a volunteer for the Forest Service. A few weeks ago, I had been bitten by a rare, venomous snake during my patrol. The only vial of antivenom in the entire city was at Central General Hospital, where Eleanor worked. By the time I arrived, I was already collapsing, kneeling at her feet, begging her to save me. But I was told that Julian had also been bitten. The antidote had to go to him. I was in Eleanor's office when the news came. She had been sitting at her desk, her expression unreadable. But upon hearing Julian's name, she shot up from her chair as if struck by lightning. Without a moment's hesitation, She grabbed her coat and rushed to the director's office. Moving so quickly, she knocked a stack of medical charts to the floor. Later, I was on my knees outside the operating room, pleading, banging my head against the door until my forehead was bruised and bloody. She had knelt down then, her lips close to my ear. "The system," she whispered, her voice a venomous hiss. "Is this another one of its pathetic tricks?" My eyes widened in shock. How did she know about the system? She didn't spare me another glance. "I advise you not to waste your energy. This is not the time for games." I kept begging, my hands slapping against the unyielding door until I was dragged away. My abdomen was a knot of fire from the poison, and my body curled into a ball. My consciousness began to fade, and the last sliver of light I hoped to see never came. Back in the present, sitting beside Julian, Eleanor called our housekeeper, Anna. "Have Leo come to the hospital right now to apologize to Julian," Eleanor commanded, her tone frigid. Anna's voice on the other end was strained and strange. "Miss, about Mr. Leo?" Before Anna could finish, Julian interjected smoothly. "Eleanor, there's really no need. I'm fine." He said the words, but his expectant gaze remained fixed on her. Eleanor's voice was laced with impatience. "He has 2 hours. If he isn't here, he'll face the consequences." She hung up and patted Julian's hand reassuringly. "You are too kind. For what he did, he is the one who should be begging for your forgiveness." I let out a bitter, silent laugh. Julian kind? The irony was suffocating. He was her first love, but at the peak of their romance, he had abandoned her without a word and moved abroad. Eleanor had spent weeks drowning her sorrow in alcohol. I was the one sent by the system to win her affection, but in comforting her, I fell for her myself. I was captivated by the fierce, resilient spirit hidden beneath her pain. I stayed by her side day after day. A week later, she was herself again, and we fell into a relationship that felt natural and right. But our peace was short-lived. A year into our marriage, Julian returned. And even though he had shattered her heart years ago, she welcomed him back as if he were a long-lost treasure. At first, I believed him when he said he was only here to wish us well. Then, not long ago, he invited me to his apartment. When I arrived, I found 3 small kittens lying on the floor, their bodies bloody and still, clear victims of horrific abuse. As I was about to leave to find him, he returned with Eleanor. The moment Julian saw the kittens, his eyes turned red. "Leo," he cried, his voice breaking. "I know you don't like me, but they were my family. How could you do this to them?" Before I could utter a single word of defense, Eleanor's hand struck my face. The slap echoed in the silent room. "I have never met anyone as disgusting as you," she spat, her eyes filled with a revulsion that made me tremble. We hadn't spoken since. It was a cold war she waged alone, as I had no one to fight back for me. My gaze, full of a sorrow she could not see, rested on her. Even now, she refused to listen to a single word I said. Anna arrived at the hospital, rushing and out of breath. When Eleanor saw that she was alone, her eyes became daggers. "Where is he?" Anna trembled. Mr. Leo, he's dead." Eleanor froze for a moment. I looked at her, my spectral heart filled with a sliver of anticipation. Would she feel remorse? Grief? Guilt? She let out a short, sharp laugh. Faking his own death now. The sound was chilling. "If he loves playing games so much, let him. Call the crematorium. Tell them to pick up the body from the house." "Miss, he's truly gone," Anna pleaded, her voice thick with genuine sorrow. Eleanor's gaze turned frosty. "How much did he pay you to lie for him? Do you forget who signs your paychecks? Tell him he has 30 minutes to appear before me, or I will make him regret it." Her authority was absolute, and Anna, shaking, fled from the room. Once they were alone, Julian wrapped his arms around Eleanor. "Eleanor, don't worry about it." "I'm not worried," she said, her voice a monotone. "You just wait. I will make him come and apologize to you." Julian looked the picture of innocence. "I don't need his apology. I just want you to be happy." Watching them, I felt the last 7 years of my life curdle into a bitter joke. From the moment I learned Eleanor was my target, I had turned away all others, pouring my entire being into her. When Julian left, I was her comfort. When she was just a hospital intern working grueling night shifts, I was the one waiting for her outside, rain or shine. I watched her climb from intern to attending physician. And in return, she denied me the antidote for another man. Even now, she was obsessed with forcing an apology for my ghost. I had strived for 7 years, only to have it all turned to dust the day Julian returned. The pain was unbearable, my soul splintering like glass, the agony of the poison returning to sweep over me in waves of despair. As time ticked by, Eleanor's expression grew darker. Humph, he feels guilty, doesn't he? That's why he won't show his face, she muttered, as if trying to convince herself. He thinks he can hide from me, but I won't let him off the hook. I will make him apologize to Julian today. She repeated it over and over, a desperate mantra. Julian had to call her name several times before she even heard him. I just watched her, my feelings numb. I could see her hand, hidden in her sleeve, trembling. Her face grew more and more grim. Julian, I'm going to wait for him outside, she announced. Don't worry, he's probably just outside, too afraid to come in. Eleanor stood and walked out of the room before Julian could reply. She found Anna still waiting by the door. Why are you still here? Where is he? Cold sweat beaded on Anna's forehead. Mr. Leo is here. Hearing this, Eleanor's tense expression eased. She glanced dismissively at Anna. If he's here, why hasn't he come up? Is he throwing a tantrum, expecting me to personally escort him? Anna took another deep breath. He never went home, Mississippi. You should go see for yourself. Anna led Eleanor to the elevator, and they descended. When the doors opened to the hospital's basement, revealing the morgue, Eleanor's steps faltered. Where is Leo? If he's here, tell him to stop playing games and come out. She refused to take another step inside. Standing at the entrance, I felt a strange pull, a sense of familiarity drawing me forward. I knew my body was in there. I glanced at Eleanor and was startled by what I saw. Her eyes were bloodshot, fixed on the morgue's entrance. Her fists were clenched so tightly her nails dug into her palms, yet she seemed not to notice. I pushed aside the question of her strange reaction. After a long pause, Eleanor finally moved, her steps heavy as she walked inside. She stopped in front of the gurney that held my body. She raised a pale, slender hand, but her movement was hesitant, not at all the decisive action I expected from her. Halfway there, she snatched it back. Her voice was strained when she spoke to the silent room. Leo, stop this childish tantrum. I'm here now. Whatever you want to say, say it. This joke isn't funny anymore. But only silence answered her. Her patience, it seemed, had run out. With a flick of her wrist, she snapped, Fine. If you love this game so much, then keep playing it. She kicked the leg of the gurney. The force was surprisingly strong, and the white sheet covering me flew off. My face was revealed to her. It was a grotesque mask. My once fair skin was a canvas of mottled purple and blue. Dark, dried blood stained the corners of my mouth. My body was contorted, my hands clenched over my stomach, a testament to the agony of my final moments. In my desperation to relieve the pain, I had clawed at myself until my fingernails broke. Eleanor, a doctor who had seen death countless times, was horrified. She stumbled backward, her legs giving out as she fell to the cold, concrete floor. When she rose, the familiar icy mask was back in place. Anna, she said, her voice trembling slightly. You're in on this joke with him, aren't you? Where did he go? I'll never believe this mannequin is him. I stared at her, a silent, unseen observer. It was almost comical. My body was lying right in front of her, and she was calling it a mannequin, a prop in a game. I was playing. I had never realized how deeply skilled she was at self-deception. I crossed my arms, watching to see what other absurdities she would conjure. Miss, this really is him, Anna stammered, terrified. Eleanor shot her a venomous look. Be quiet. Say one more word of this nonsense, and you're fired. Anna fell silent. Eleanor didn't linger. She turned and walked out, leaving my body behind in the cold darkness. Back in Julian's room, her face was still pale. He came over and took her hand. Eleanor, did Leo refuse to come? It's really okay. His voice was a gentle balm. I don't mind suffering a little, as long as you're happy. His saccharine words made me want to gag. Eleanor squeezed his hand. Julian, he is a truly vicious person. He didn't want to apologize, so he ran away and pretended to be dead. You just wait. I'll find him and drag him back. I was speechless. She had seen my corpse with her own eyes, a body ravaged by one of the most potent venoms in the world, and she still believed I was alive, hiding from her. She soothed Julian's ego, then left the room again. She walked to the nurse's station and tapped on the desk. Get me the security footage from the day of the surgery 1 month ago. I stared at her, confused. What was she doing? If she thought I was faking, why did she need the tapes? The footage was delivered to her office. She stared at the screen for a long time without moving. I drifted over to watch. Finally, she pressed play. The video showed me on my knees, begging her to save me. Her voice, captured by the microphone, was like ice. Do you really think you can be compared to Julian? You found out he was poisoned and faked the same symptoms, trying to force me to choose? Don't you have a system? Even if you were poisoned, can it help you? She had turned and left me there. The footage showed me curled on the floor, convulsing. People walked past, their faces averted, no one offering a hand. I writhed in agony until my clothes were soaked with cold sweat. Finally, my body went still. Just a minute before Eleanor emerged from surgery, an old janitor from the morgue had come with a gurney and wheeled my body away. Eleanor collapsed into her chair. After a long, stunned silence, her eyes turned crimson, and with a guttural scream, she swept everything off. Her desk, smashing the computer monitor against the wall. The neat, orderly office became a wasteland of shattered plastic and scattered papers. The staff outside didn't dare enter until Julian arrived. He pushed open the door, shocked by the scene. He went to her side, pulling her into his arms. Eleanor, what's wrong? Did something happen? The enraged woman from moments ago instantly became quiet, melting into his embrace. The nurses at the door whispered among themselves. Look how perfect Dr. Vance and Mr. Julian are together. I know, right? I never understood what she saw in that other guy. He was just a forest ranger. No ambition at all. Not like Mr. Julian, who's handsome and successful. I heard he used dirty tricks to come between Dr. Vance and Mr. Julian in the first place. Their words washed over me. I looked at Eleanor and Julian, the perfect couple, and sighed a ghostly sigh. It was for the best. I would no longer be a shadow in her life. She was free to pursue her true love. My falling in love with Eleanor was almost a cliché. The day I started university, the system designated her as my target. She was the wealthy, popular campus queen, and I was an orphan from the mountains who had only gotten in on a scholarship. I never dared approach her, especially when I saw the brilliant Julian always by her side. No matter how the system prodded me, I kept my distance. Then one day, on my way to the library, someone shoved me hard from behind. I fell, scraping my palms on the rough pavement. Looking up, I saw my roommates, who had always resented me. Well, look at the great scholar, one of them sneered. Can't even walk straight. I lowered my head, saying nothing. I had learned early on that being poor was a sin in their eyes. Even though I had done nothing to them, they despised me. The stares of the onlookers burned my skin. Then, a cool voice cut through the mockery. What are you all doing? It was Eleanor. Everyone knew the campus bell. They parted to let her through. She walked up to me, and though her voice was cool, I heard an undercurrent of concern. This is a university for learning, not a stage for bullying. Her words were a shield. After that day, my life at university became much easier. And from that day on, my focus shifted from just studying and earning money to her. I watched her every move. To get closer, I would sometimes follow her from a distance after my part-time jobs. They were right about one thing, though. I was never good enough for her. What was I thinking in my final moments? Did I regret loving her? Was I filled with hatred for them? It didn't matter anymore. In the days that followed, Eleanor seemed to have truly forgotten my existence. After Julian was discharged, they became inseparable. They attended galas together. He took her to a mountain peak to celebrate her birthday, showering her with her favorite gifts. It was as if I had never existed. I remained by her side, a silent specter, tethered to her for reasons I couldn't comprehend. She achieved great success, becoming the youngest and only female department head in the hospital's history. I remembered how genuinely happy I was for her when she was promoted to attending physician. I had cooked a celebratory feast at home, but she never came back that night. She returned the next day, disheveled, wearing the same clothes from the day before. Eleanor was meticulous about cleanliness. She never wore clothes for more than a day. That day, she was uncharacteristically forward with me. I was thrilled by her sudden affection. Only later did I learn that Julian had returned that night. He had divorced a wealthy foreign heiress and come back. I now understood it was his reappearance that had shattered the fragile peace of our lives. Tonight, Eleanor wore a stunning, high-slit red gown as she accompanied Julian to a banquet. An old rival of hers approached, a smirk on her face. Eleanor, darling, I heard your husband died. Is it true? Eleanor's face changed instantly. She strode forward and slapped the woman across the face. This was not the composed Eleanor I knew. Even when Julian had left her, she had only allowed herself one night of drunken despair before reappearing as radiant as ever. The entire party was stunned into silence. Eleanor lunged at the woman, grabbing her hair and slapping her again. My family's affairs are none of your business." The woman shrieked. "You shameless hypocrite, Eleanor. You have a husband, yet you parade around with another man." Eleanor's brow furrowed in fury. "When have I ever done such a thing?" The woman laughed cruelly. "You and Julian are together every day. Do you think we're all blind? He's your lover, isn't he? Now I understand why your husband finally gave up." With that, she wrenched herself free and stalked away. After the party, Julian went to help a dazed Eleanor off the floor. "Eleanor." She snapped back to reality, shoving him away violently before running out of the hall. I followed her. She went straight to the hospital and stood frozen before the morgue. Staring at the cold, dark room sent a chill through my spectral form. She placed a trembling hand on the doorknob, whispering to herself, "Leo, I'm giving you one last chance. If I find out you deceived me." Her face was a mask of grim determination as she turned the handle. In the dim light, only a few sheet-covered gurneys were visible, holding the unclaimed. She walked to where my body lay and simply stood there, motionless. I watched her closely. Despite her calm posture, I could see her hands were shaking. My ghostly form lunged, my pale hands closing around her throat. "Eleanor, you're going to pay with me." I raged, but my hands passed right through her. She placed her hand on the white sheet, taking a deep breath. My body had been here for nearly 2 weeks. Even in the cold of the morgue, decay had set in. My flesh was starting to rot, half of my face no longer recognizable. Seeing myself in such a state, a wave of profound sadness washed over me. I had always been a clean person. Eleanor's eyes widened, a flicker of disbelief in their depths. She threw herself onto the gurney, clutching my decomposing body. "Leo, you're lying to me, aren't you? This can't be you." She grabbed my hand, the hand with the tattoo. It was a design I had gotten when we were married, her name intertwined with mine. When she first saw it, her eyes had filled with tears as she traced the lines. "You can't abandon me now," I had joked. "I can never get a government job with this." The sight of the tattoo shattered her denial. Grief, pain, disbelief. A storm of emotions crossed her face. "Impossible. This can't be you," she sobbed. "You have the system. How could you die?" "I know. This is your punishment for me, isn't it? I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Please, just come out." Only the cold silence of the morgue answered her. After a long time, she stood up, her expression turning icy once more. "No, this isn't you. You wait. When I find out where you're hiding, I will make you pay." Even now, even with the undeniable proof in her arms, she clung to the delusion that it was all a lie. The irony was a physical pain. She turned and left, without a backward glance. But just as I thought she was gone for good, she returned, her lip bitten raw. "This fake body. I'm taking it with me." She arranged for my corpse to be transported carefully back to our home. She placed me in our bedroom and then threw herself into a new obsession, investigating my life. She found my journals. Sitting on the sofa, she read page after page. "Eleanor said yes to my proposal today. We are going to be so happy. Eleanor was promoted today. I cooked a big dinner, but she didn't come home all night. She finally came back, looking exhausted. She didn't explain where she was. Oh, her white moonlight is back. Julian tortured the cats to death and framed me. I tried to explain, but she wouldn't give me the chance. Another Cold War. I should go back to work. At least then I won't make her unhappy. The field assignment ends tomorrow. I get to go home tomorrow." The entry stopped there. On the day I was supposed to come home, I was doing one last patrol in the forest. I encountered a snake I had never seen before, and I was bitten. Tears splashed onto the pages of the journal. She shook her head frantically. No, this has to be fake." The truth was laid bare before her, and still, she refused to see. I had no hope left for her. Her investigation continued, relentlessly, and what she found destroyed her world. Julian hadn't left the country for family reasons. He had left because the Shun family business was in trouble, and he had promptly married a wealthy foreign woman for her money. He had cheated on her, been forced into a divorce, and left with nothing. Even while he was dating Eleanor all those years ago, he had been sleeping with a different woman every night. Then the final report came. I stared at it, my ghostly eyes wide. My snake bite hadn't been an accident. Julian had acquired the snake and planted it on my patrol route. He knew there was only one dose of antivenom in the city. He faked his own symptoms to ensure that I would die. Eleanor crumpled the report in her fist. She wanted to find him. Julian, not expecting her, was in his office with his secretary in his arms. He stood up, flustered. "Eleanor." She threw the evidence in his face. Julian, I never knew you were this kind of person. He picked up the scattered papers, his composure cracking. Eleanor, let me explain. I did it because I care about you so much. I wanted to be with you. She recoiled from his touch, her face a mask of revulsion. You're disgusting. Stay away from me. Seeing that the game was up, Julian's face twisted into a sneer. I'm disgusting? What about you, Eleanor? A married woman, carrying on with another man. You're just as shameless as everyone says. His every word was a blow. I thought of you as a brother. A brother? He laughed. I don't need a sister. Go ask anyone if they believe that. I bet even Leo didn't believe it. His confession complete, Eleanor collapsed. Julian knelt, stroking her face. Eleanor, he's dead now. Nothing stands in our way. We can be together. She lowered her head. Julian smiled, triumphant. I scoffed. Even knowing the truth, she would choose him. This was the difference between love and not being loved. A furious, desperate rage filled me. My 7 years of devotion had earned me this. I will make you all pay. I shrieked into the void. If there was a next life, I would drag them all down with me. But then, Eleanor looked up. She slapped Julian across the face, hard. You will pay for what you did. She turned. Police officers rushed into the room. Mr. Julian, you're under arrest for suspicion of murder. When had she called them? I had been with her the entire time and hadn't seen it. Eleanor, you reported me? Julian screamed. Do you think that will bring Leo back? You're the one who killed him. You gave me the antidote. Just imagine how much pain he was in when he died. I used the most venomous snake in the world. After they had dragged him away, Eleanor was left alone in the silent office. She looked as if she had aged 10 years. She stared blankly into space. Leo, she whispered, you must hate me so much. Seeing her like that, I suddenly felt a sense of release. Not because I had forgiven her, but because I no longer loved her. And without love, there could be no hate. Eleanor went home. She cleaned my body, dressing me in fresh clothes. But the smell of decay could not be contained. The neighbors complained, and the police came. They found Eleanor, who hadn't changed her clothes in a week, covered in the same scent of death as me. She was staring at me, her expression vacant. When they tried to take my body, she snapped out of her stupor. No, don't separate us, she screamed, clinging to my corpse. Please, I'm begging you. But the law is the law, and my body was a public health hazard. The police were firm. I was grateful to them for granting me a final peace. Eleanor regained her composure. As my only legal next of kin, she was given my ashes after the cremation. It poured rain that day. She stood outside the crematorium, wearing the same black dress she wore on the day we first met. She handled all the arrangements with a chilling calm. The day my ashes were interred, I felt my spiritual form weakening. I knew I would dissipate soon. I looked at Eleanor and managed a faint, ghostly smile. Soon, I would be free, return to whatever void I came from. Eleanor went home, put on her wedding dress, and drew a bath. She swallowed a handful of sleeping pills and lay down in the water. By the time anyone noticed the fire that had started in the house, it was too late. She made no attempt to escape, watching the flames lick at the walls. Leo, she whispered with a small smile. You probably don't want to see me, but I miss you so much. At that moment, the invisible tether that bound me to her snapped. I was free. I turned to leave without hesitation. Behind me, a familiar voice called out, Leo. I didn't turn back. I only moved faster. We had not seen each other one last time in life. There was no need to do so in death. Eleanor's epilogue. I had everything I ever wanted growing up. Then I went to university, fell in love with Julian, and he left me. For the first time, I questioned everything. I didn't understand why he had done it. That's when Leo appeared. He probably never knew, but I had noticed him long before that. At a high school math competition, he had solved the final problem 10 minutes faster than me, taking first place. I had never met anyone so brilliant. He was always there for me, a quiet, steady presence. Slowly, I fell for him. We married quickly, but after the wedding, he changed. He had such a bright future, yet he chose to be a volunteer forest ranger. I couldn't understand it. I was ashamed. I began to distance myself, not wanting anyone to know my husband had such a menial job. Then Julian called. He was back. He told me he had been forced to leave, that his family had arranged it. I understood the pressures of our world, and our shared childhood made it impossible for me to cut him out of my life completely. I saw him as a brother. But Leo was always jealous of Julian. My job was stressful, and I had no energy for his insecurities. At first, I would explain, but eventually, I just let him believe whatever he wanted. What he never knew was that after Julian's 3 kittens died, I started to hear his thoughts. I heard him talking to something he called the system. I realized I was his conquest, a target in a game. He didn't love me at all. The irony was devastating. The incident with the cats gave me the perfect excuse to start our Cold War. I never expected to see him in that state, his face dark with poison, unable to speak. When they told me he was poisoned, my mind went blank. Moments later, I learned Julian was poisoned, too. The hospital, the entire city, had only 1 dose. My childhood friend, and the man I thought I loved. One of them had to die. It felt like an impossible choice. Then, as I passed him in the hall, I heard his thoughts again, clear as day. What's my conquest value for Eleanor now? When can I finally go home? My mind was made up. If I wasn't conquered, the system wouldn't let him die. He grabbed my leg outside the operating room, begging. I just thought he was being selfish. He had a way to survive, yet he wanted to deny Julian his only chance. After the surgery, I went out immediately to check on him. The hallway was empty. He must have given up the act when he saw I wasn't moved, I thought. He was probably at home, waiting for me, his target. I didn't give it another thought. It wasn't until a week later, when a colleague mentioned him, that I realized I hadn't seen him. That had never happened before. Even for work trips, he always told me in advance. I was furious. It was his fault, yet he was the one giving me the silent treatment. When Julian mentioned wanting an apology, I seized the opportunity. It was an excuse to force him to see me. I was waiting for him. But only Anna came. He was still playing games. When she told me he was dead, I didn't believe it. How could he die before completing his mission? It had to be a trick. I went to the morgue. I told myself it wasn't him. He wouldn't die. He was too selfish. But then I saw the tattoo on his finger. Our names. And I knew. I knew he was really gone. Still, my mind rebelled. The system wouldn't let him die. I had to find where he was hiding. But my investigation only uncovered more truths. Truths. About him. His journals. He had loved me. Even if it started as a mission, his love had become real. Reading his words, I finally understood. Then came the truth about Julian. He had killed Leo. He had orchestrated everything to get the single dose of antivenom. I made Julian pay, but I couldn't deny the one truth he screamed at me before they took him away. I was the one who killed Leo. The police came for his body. I couldn't even keep the last piece of him that I had. Without him, I saw no reason to keep living. The house was so dark and empty. Leo, please wait for me. I know you will never forgive me, but I need to tell you I'm sorry. In the next life, please, don't ever appear before me again. I will gladly suffer in the deepest hell, if only you can have a happy, peaceful life.